Pozdrav dragi gledatelji! Nastavljamo sa AFK Show specijalom u kojem vam donosimo presjek najbitnijih tema i govornika sa nedavno održane konferencije Business and Gaming. Slijedi nam epizoda sa Stevenom Nealom i tema kako napraviti dobar međunarodni biznis iz e-sporta. Sa njime je razgovarao naš Vec.
Čuli smo hrvatsku priču o uspjehu u e-sportu i to u B2B verziji, a sad je vrijeme za analizu na malo širem polju. Kako napraviti dobar međunarodni biznis iz e-sporta? Pitanje je koje će Game Hubov Vedran Jelavić, aka Veco Kazna, dobro, još jednom upoznali smo ga, analizirati sa svojim gostom Stevenom Nealom. Let's give a round of applause for Steven and Vedran.
Hello, Steven.
Hello.
How are you feeling?
I'm good. It's been exciting so far today. Really interesting topics, especially the last two topics, since it's especially close to home, esports and metaverse.
Yeah, we are here to talk about esports.
Yeah.
In general, I have to mention that you worked in ESL, you worked in Wargaming, while Wargaming had their own esport ecosystem, Wargaming.net League, where I played and my team played for. But after that, you had an interesting journey. You had an interesting journey in Saudi Arabia, in esport and in gaming in general. So tell me more about why is Saudi Arabia now the place to be and to invest, to do business in regarding gaming and esports?
It's actually quite an interesting space right now. As we just saw in the previous presentation on the slides, which was showing some of the biggest investments in esports, there was one picture showing that Saudi Arabia has established a $38 million investment fund. Not specifically only for esports, but for gaming and esports in general. And what they have created, so the Middle Eastern region in general has created, the different countries have created visions. So like in Saudi Arabia, it's a 2030 vision. Mm-hmm. And the whole idea behind this is to diversify economies away from oil industries, just to create more opportunities for especially young population in these countries. And part of this 2030 strategy is then to look at different emerging industries, high-tech industries, and one of them obviously being gaming. Saudi Arabia's population is 50% of the population is below 30, so a very young audience and a very invested and interested audience in gaming and in pop culture, etc. So part of this whole vision, that's how this investment fund came to life. And the idea behind it is to create new opportunities for local people to either establish own businesses, but also to create new career paths in esports and gaming overall. And to connect it to the topic we want to talk about today, how to create a successful esports business, I was kind of like thinking about breaking it down in different segments, because a government entity might have a different goal than a private entity. So taking once again Saudi Arabia as an example, direct return on investment is secondary for them. So if they invest $38 billion, they don't expect $40 billion back in a certain time. They're looking more of the indirect return on investments, as I was like saying, job creation, GDP growth, industry building, and then also like adjacency industries. Mm-hmm. So you got gaming, you know yourself, worked in a media company, a TV channel. So not every job in esports and gaming is just about developing a game or playing the game, but also servicing the communities around them.
They're more looking long term.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's also the reason why I then also decided to go there, in combination with it being a region without history in the esports and gaming world, blank canvas. So it's a place where you can start being a little bit brave, and that's something I want to talk about a little bit later. But like trying to push the boundaries and see like how can we break out of the mold that we have right now and try to create new innovative formats moving forward. Mm-hmm. So yeah. I would say it was an amazing experience. 3 years I spent there.
I was just about to say, how was the experience? And
it was 3 years I spent there. It comes with its challenges. I don't think it comes as a surprise. Different world, different culture. So a bit of a culture shock. Took some time to get used to. But overall, the most amazing thing for me was just experiencing the passion of the people. Something I felt like we are losing a little bit in the Western world, where it's becoming overly commercialized, while in the Middle Eastern region, it still feels like it's passion. It reminds me when I started in esports nearly 15 years ago, you know, where it was more about, we love games, let's do something about games, you know, and money was kind of the secondary topic. And while they have these big, deep pockets, it still feels like money is not the main driver here.
That was are they passionate because of the fundings and because they have a large...
No, they are just passionate. They just love gaming. They love pop culture. Money is just a helpful vehicle for them to actually build it in a faster timeline and to a level that they can appreciate it.
Okay, do you know why? How can one small country like Croatia get to a status like? I mean, of course, that's a far-fetched question, but how can what do you think? How can we do what we need to do to become esport or a gaming center for game development?
I'd say long-term vision.
Or business.
Yeah, long-term vision. A lot of times in esports, there's a desire for quick results really fast. But I feel like especially a government has the possibility and the capability to rather run a marathon than a sprint. So planting the seeds early on and waiting for these seeds to flourish to plants before you can then start getting the return on your investment. And I think one of the key areas to look at is education. How can esports and gaming be used on the one hand in existing educational institutes like a university? How can gamification of education enhance people's willingness to learn, but also start educating people in the gaming industry or like towards the gaming industry? Start preparing the developers of tomorrow, the broadcasters of tomorrow, etc. And then waiting for the 10, 15 years until the industry grows enough that you can then start becoming a main hub to service a global market then.
So do you think that maybe the first baby steps for that are, we had Nikola as a speaker just before us, they are organizing a student esport league. Do you think those are maybe kind of baby steps towards that mission?
I think it's a good thing to promote esports as a whole, to actually establish it more into the culture of people. Between us gamers it already is, but to make it more mainstream accessible, that our parents can understand it, their parents, our grandparents can understand it, etc. So I think it's very helpful towards that. But I'm talking about then also educating the people. So this is using people who are in education and bringing it closer to them, but then using their interest in the gaming, their passion into esports, to then show them ways how can they actually make a living out of esports, like for their entire lives, you know, not just short-term gigs, but they can actually make a career out of it and retire at some point with having an esports job, you know, like us two are trying as well. Yeah. We are quite blessed right now, but many people, they're still looking for their ways into esports, and I feel like creating more of these opportunities will help.
Okay, so now after understanding how a government should approach this, how should an entrepreneur approach esports and esport business?
I'll say one thing as what I just said is take your time. And the other thing is make sure that you have your goals right. So I think at the end of the day, anybody who goes into business, then one of their main goals is making money. But if your only goal is making money, you're already set up to fail. You know, so think of what product you want to create, and is there even a need for this product in the first place on the market? I like to use an example of the Overwatch League, probably the biggest example. While Blizzard is one of the biggest esports companies out there, has created some of the most iconic esports titles. I myself am a massive StarCraft 2 fan. But I feel like in Overwatch League, they've done a really big mistake. They tried to push towards this home game approach, but there was no desire from the community to even have this. There was no one saying, I want to have a home team that I can watch. Esports and gaming has always been international. That's one of the beauties of the gaming community. There's no boundaries, there's no skin colors, there's no religion. It's just one big community. And there was no, I personally never experienced anybody saying like, I want to watch my local team, I want to watch my Real Madrid play esports. And that in return then created huge financial pressure on the teams to actually service these needs from Overwatch League. They had to create their own local stadiums with enough seats, etc. Ultimately resulting in many teams not being able to pay the bills at the end of the day. We heard it a bit from Nikolai before. Teams are going bankrupt. We saw one of these slides showing FaZe, their stock price dropping, just because it's very, very expensive to maintain a team. And this is now creating artificial barriers or more challenges that are not really needed, that the esports community doesn't want. So it's really understanding what do the players want or what do the communities want, and how can your product enrich them. Gamers are very invested. They're willing to spend a lot of money. We know it ourselves, new mouses, new keyboards, etc. You know, we're very passionate about what we buy, and we are willing to spend a lot of money for our things, but we don't want to be scammed. We don't want to be ripped off. And I think that's the kind of the trend that we experience in esports right now. It feels like the main goal of a lot of companies popping up is, I want to get rich first. It's like my get rich scheme kind of. And it won't work in the long run. Your
but
isn't
that basically those esport teams are sending the wrong image then?
The wrong what?
Wrong image of themselves. They're selling it as a really profitable business.
Yes.
But in the core, when you get into it, you see that it's really not.
Yes.
That's also a problem.
Yes, definitely.
In my eyes.
Because it's in my opinion, it's stopping innovation. I was talking about it earlier. Like I'm looking at the esports industry right now. It feels like we are stuck. It's growing, like the scale is growing, but the type is not changing. You know, it's always a league format, a group stage, a playoff stage, maybe a regional like layover, like kind of special event, the MSI in League of Legends, like Europe against America. But it's just that. And because it's scaling up, the price tag is getting higher, and I feel like a lot of money that could be invested in smaller startups, let's say like universities who might create like small companies, etc., who could use this funding to actually grow something new, unique, innovative, that money is now going missing, and it's been burnt on I'd say vanity projects. It's more about how do I look as an individual, getting my followers, getting my new big watch, my new big car that I can post on social media. It feels like it's shifting too much towards this direction, and it's losing this authenticity, the passion that actually makes gaming and esports so special.
Okay, I would just like to mention again that if anybody has questions, you can think about it. I'm going to be the first one to ask a question. I want to know, so you have a really nice history. You were in esports for 12 years?
Yeah.
12 years?
Yeah.
So how do you see esport now? I mean, you saw it 12 years ago.
Yeah.
You've seen it now. And what do you think, what's going to happen in 10 years?
The 10-year question was going to be a tricky one. Well, so the past, it was actually, I got some of my fondest memories from the beginning times in esports, because it was not an industry. It was literally just a bunch of kids getting together and just having fun, you know, like we slept in locations, we didn't have hotel rooms, no flights, we rented a bus, 8 people in the bus, off we go, 12 hours drive through Europe, no sleep, you know, like crazy times. I'm happy that these times are over.
Of course.
Cherish them still though, and then shift it more to a more organized approach, as Nikolai was saying, around 2013, we saw Riot kind of establishing the franchise approach, etc. And it was growing in a very organic and good pace to where everybody was very bullish about the market. And right now, the current state, I feel like, as I was saying, I feel like it's become a bit stale, and the focus has shifted in the wrong direction. It's a very money-driven industry these days, especially at the top level, pro level, etc. It's very, very money-focused. If you go into smaller communities, you can still find this old passion, which is still very enjoyable. About the future,
hard to say, huh?
It's a really hard one.
That's why I asked.
What is good to see is esports and gaming is becoming more acceptable. If you would have talked about this 5-6 years ago, you'd be like weirdos, whatever, you know, or future criminals, whatever, you know, aggressive people. And it's a wrong perception. We all know that. And finally, we can see a shift that I think Fortnite done an amazing job in this, making gaming actually more acceptable, more pop culture, understanding that gaming is more than just sitting in a dark room, pressing some buttons, but it's like hanging out with your buddies, interacting. As Caroline was saying with the metaverse, you know, gaming is going beyond than just gaming. You can actually interact in your gaming environment in different ways, you know. So, and I feel like it's going to go more in this direction, it's going to be interesting to see what people then start doing. So I think gaming is going to become more of, as we're saying with metaverse, becoming more of a platform than just an entertainment tool that you just do for a couple of hours and that's it. And it's going to be interesting to see how people are going to utilize these new platforms then, what they're going to make out of it, as we saw with KC with the virtual shops, etc., or Nike with virtual shops. How is it going to happen? How is it going to develop? So I think we're going to see a lot of development in this direction. But I don't think I'm brave enough to lean myself out the window here and give an accurate prediction.
Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to hear your take.
Yeah.
If anybody has questions for our guest here, now would be the time to ask. If you don't, I just want to finish we are out of time. I just want to finish our time here with what was your biggest challenge in your esport business career? You have some keynote to point out. Personal
challenge was the move to Saudi Arabia. Okay. But that was less about esports itself. It was more around, the cultural shock, etc. You know, going to a different environment. So it was more of a personal challenge. A industry challenge, I would say, was my experience during our times at the Wargaming and the Wargaming League. We had an amazing product. The challenge that we had was trying to catch up with the market, because Wargaming started very late with their esports approach, and it was during also the peak time of when esports was exploding, as I was talking about earlier, Riot setting up their franchise league, etc. And there was this desire from many publishers, we need to be there where they are right now. And there was this push of trying to reach a place which took other companies or other communities like Counter-Strike 10 years to get there, which we were trying to get there in 1 or 2 years. A little bit of a rush in? Exactly, yeah? It was a bit too much of a rush, and the challenge was trying to balance this rush. Ultimately, I'd say the solution that we then chose was the one that didn't help us the most, because we then created 2 games. So it was then, once again, a challenge in trying to bridge the esports format to the main format of the game. So to summarize that, to make it more generic, it's trying to take an unauthentic approach to an authentic community, you know. So that was probably the biggest challenge I had, but also the longest challenge I had, and the most fun and most rewarding one as well, though. Okay, thank you. On that note, we're going to end this. Ladies and gentlemen, Steven Neal. Thank you very much.
Ok, hvala Stevenu, hvala Veci koji je odlično dao gasa malo, dobio je vjerojatno uputu da moramo loviti i tempo. Ovo je bilo zanimljivo, brzinski.